Hi, my name is MaryKim Arnold, and I'm a writer, artist, and teacher. I guess I first got started in a writing practice from a pretty young age. I think as I'm a transnational, transracial Korean adoptee, and I think that raised in a white family, white parents. So there was always a recognition of something different or unique about me in relation to the people around me. And I found a way to address that and explore that through writing. So I was always trying to explain or express the way it felt or the way I saw my world. And I kept many spiral bound notebooks all through grade school and all through high school. And it was just a way that I came to try to make sense of anything in my world. And then, I think as I got older and started doing more reading and being exposed to other stories and other writers that I admired, it just seemed a really private and way that I could just be with my thoughts and with my own experiences. I think I was always a bit of a sort of loner child. And so it was a way to, reading became a way to have a world of company, and writing became a way of maybe talking to that company. And there was no real risk of being rejected in that way. It was all very private, and I could find my own space. So, for me, as an adoptee, racial difference was always very visible and sort of recognized for as long as I can remember. But I think I really always thought of it as through an individual lens, like my individual family or my individual experience. And it wasn't until college, I think, that I started to recognize that there were other people whose experience, even if it wasn't exactly like my own, had some commonality with it, particularly, having grown up in largely white spaces. And so meeting other people of color, other people who had, experienced racial difference in the US, like it gave me a way to put language to some of the sort of frictions or disruptions or paradoxes that I felt in my own experience. And as I started to recognize that as part of a long history, part of the history of the United States, part of the history of other people, I felt more connected to communities of color, that there, even though my experience was a little different from many of the people that I met or spoke with, it was a way to feel connected and maybe a little less isolated in, what I thought was particular to my story and my family. In challenging times, and maybe this is all times, I think what an artist can do is explore, interrogate, confront, or express, maybe all of those things, a kind of truth of experience. I think in challenging times, I always think of the Toni Morrison quote, now is not a time for despair or self-pity, but this is a time when artists get to work. And, I think that really has been true in the last few years in particular, to see the importance of being able to hold a complexity that maybe isn't easily reducible or easily expressible, but needs to take on multi-layers, or to take on ambiguity or uncertainty. And, I think art has a particular role because it doesn't need to necessarily occupy a space of easily reducible or easily expressible in a little chunk. I think there's something about the process and practice and methods of creative work that allows a different relationship to whatever a final product might be. And in the best cases, I think that allows both the artist and the viewer or reader to have a different experience that's maybe a little more removed, or gives a little pause from the ways that we are typically living our lives, the sort of daily flow of information and pressures and production and productivity, caregiving, all the responsibilities that we have in our lives. And both the practice of an artist and the sort of interaction with art, I think, can allow us a glimpse into a different kind of relationship. And that space, I think, that little space that's afforded can be really valuable as a way of slowing down, as a way of turning inward, both reflecting on how we live and maybe an opportunity to connect with those experiences of other people as well. I think my wish would really be for everyone to have an opportunity to develop some kind of creative practice, to sort of recognize that creative expression and methods and imagination are for everyone. It's sort of this essential part of being alive. I think some people, as adults especially, some people think, oh, I'm not an artist, or art's not for me, or I don't have the skills to do this or that. And I guess I wish we could all kind of understand art as not so much something that you have or don't, or something that you can acquire as a skill, but as a set of ways of being, a way of being attentive to yourself and to your surroundings, a way of being in conversation with other people, that we could emphasize the practices rather than the product, that we could emphasize the value of having something that's maybe private, maybe you end up sharing it, but a way to have a relationship with yourself that then allows you to have a more open and honest and maybe trusting relationship with the world. For me, that has been really true as part of my practice. I think a lot of how Providence, being such a great and collaborative and sort of open place for artists and creativity, what that has meant for me in my own life. It has meant that there's kind of a lower barrier to entry to try different things, and to try things that maybe are just kind of wacky or fun. And that has been really profound. It has a profound impact on the way I can see myself. I do all sorts of things. I experiment with sound and visual art and textile work and performance. And that is largely due to the cross-disciplinary practices that I think are really supported in lots of ways in the small community of Providence. And there's been I've taken a lot of joy in those opportunities. If I were stranded on a desert island, I would need as many notebooks of different shapes and sizes and paper weights and feels and textures as I could possibly have crammed into whatever vessel got me there. And pens, of course, or pencils or chalk or whatever. I would want to be able to make marks and to keep my little toolbox of notebooks. Absolutely. And even if I wasn't able to bring books, I would be able to create my own little markings and then refer back to them and reuse them. So what has been surprising, I guess, about my life and career is, I don't know, how sort of varied and unexpected and satisfying in ways that I hadn't necessarily planned or anticipated or expected. There are so many jobs that I've done and projects that I've worked on that I hadn't planned for. But now, at this stage of my life, I can look back and see the sort of gifts and opportunities that all of them presented. And I think when I was younger, I had a much more rigid set of plans or expectations for how I thought my career would unfold, how I thought my work would unfold. But it's been, sort of surprising in mostly really wonderful ways, that, opportunities come up and you're not sure where they will go. But I think now that they've opened up some real possibilities for me that I wouldn't have expected. And I think, one of them is the fact that I've stayed in Providence, came to Providence as an undergrad, came to Brown, and I didn't expect that I would ever stay as long as I have. And now 25, 30 years later, 30 years later, I think, my family, I have raised my family here, and I've lived here my entire adult life, and the friends that I've made and the work that I've made, so much of it has been connected to this place and these situations that I never expected to be in. I guess also maybe this is maybe sounds a little cliche, but I think it's true that many times the disappointments or the frustrations or things that didn't go as planned opened up other things, other opportunities for me as well. And I think it's a lot easier to see that in retrospect than when you're making those decisions or nursing the wounds of rejection or frustration or failure, even, that all of those experiences contribute to the texture of your work. And I try to keep that in mind more now that, save everything. Everything is for the work. And I think that goes for, little objects and tools, but also experiences. Everything goes back into it. And in fact, it's sort of the thing that feeds the whole process for me.